As my kidney function declined and I knew I was headed for kidney failure, I remember looking up on the internet, hoping that I would find other people going through this experience so that I would know what to expect and what was I going to feel and how is this going to affect my daily life. And on the internet, all I would find was a list of symptoms, and that was helpful, but it wasn't quite what I was looking for. I didn't know I was suffering from kidney disease until I was at the bottom of stage 3. So that's when your GFR is between 30 and 59. So the symptoms I experienced during this time was I was nauseous. I would even throw up. Throughout the day, I was usually nauseous, but then in the middle of the night, that's when I would get up and actually throw up. Now, that was improved when I stopped eating any animal products. So I stopped eating meat and I stopped dairy. That seemed to help. Plus, I think my body kind of started to get used to the level of creatinine. I think every time that jumped up, it made me nauseous again. I also started to get terrible headaches. I've had headaches before, but they're usually far in between or have to deal with me having a cold or the flu. These would come on pretty quickly, and it was throughout my whole head, and it would just throb and pound. And people with kidney disease and kidney failure are really careful about what pain medications they take. So I wasn't going to take anything. I wasn't going to risk hurting my kidneys more. And so I'd have to go into my room. I'd turn off all the lights. I'd make it dark and quiet and get a cloth to lay over my forehead. That seemed to help. And I just have to write it out. That would take 2 to 3 hours at a time. And it became something that happened every afternoon. Another one I felt was the shortness of breath. And I think part of that was just from having all that extra fluid in me. But I started to feel exhausted. And it didn't take very much for me to feel like I had just run a marathon. Going up the stairs would exhaust me. I was teaching lessons, and standing up for a long time was difficult, so I started teaching lessons from sitting down. I also had a lot of anxiety because I just knew something wasn't right. And, like I mentioned earlier in my other videos, it took a while for me to go and visit a nephrologist and get answers. So there was just anxiety. There's also a lot of anxiety because especially between getting your lab work done, you're like, is it better? Is all the work I've been doing, has that improved? Has it gone worse? So there's just this constant underlining feeling of stress. I also started to lose my hair. It wasn't really quickly over just like losing chunks, but just slowly more and more hair would fall out. My skin became yellower and paler. I kind of lost the elasticity on my skin. So like if I pulled up like this, it would just stay instead of going back. It would just stay like this little, like a pinch pot. Now, as my kidneys declined into stage 4, which is your GFR is between 15 and 29, these symptoms just became greater and affected my day-to-day life more. My skin continued to yellow and pale to the point when I would try to put on my foundation, it was completely the wrong color. So I pretty much just stopped wearing makeup, plus I was just too tired to do a lot of these extra things. I was fatigued all the time. It didn't matter how many naps, how much sleep I got, if I rested or did extra activities, I was exhausted, just tired. It was like this bucket with a hole in it, and no matter how much sleep or rest or water I put into that, it was just draining out. And as my kidney's ability to work declined, it felt like that hole in that bucket just got larger and larger. At this stage, I began to lose weight. My muscles were breaking down because I didn't have enough protein in me, and I wasn't eating, I wasn't as hungry, and it got to the point where my clothes were not fitting, my pants were kind of falling off at me because I had lost so much weight. I couldn't stand for long periods of time, but now if I was standing, I was starting to get dizzy. I was starting to feel like I was going to pass out. So it was hard for me to go shopping. It was hard for me to take a shower. I should have put a chair or something to sit in when I was going to shower, because I would go in to shower and that would exhaust me. By the end, I'd partially dry off and I'd end up having to lay down on the floor trying to catch my breath and trying to keep the darkness that was tunneling down in, at bay. I began to get really, really bad muscle cramps. I guess those are also known as Charlie horses, and they happen in my feet, in my toes, and in my calves. Once in a while I'd have some of my other muscles kind of twinge, but they never did a full muscle cramp. As my kidney function declined, these muscle cramps happened more and more often, and they became so often that they stopped being a big deal or hurting. And often when I was laying down to go to bed, I could feel that muscle wanted to cramp, so I would just point my toe and have a cramp up and let it get on with it. Let it do its thing, and then I would move on. In the list, they talk about bone pain. For me, the pain was more in my joints, especially in my hips. I like to walk, and by the end of my walks, it'd just be kind of a throbbing pain. So it made it less enjoyable to be up and active. Also, in this stage 4, I could really tell that I was losing my cognitive ability, my alertness. It was hard to focus on conversations if they were going into depth or long things, and everything by the end of stage 4, as you're really approaching kidney failure, you can just feel your whole body, your mind, your body just slow down, and you just want to sleep and rest. I wasn't in a lot of pain. I didn't have that itching. The cramps that I'd have just weren't as painful, and I just wanted to sleep. By the end of stage 4, I really couldn't work. I continued to teach lessons because I could do that sitting down. This is when I needed to ask for help. Things became hard. I needed extra help in my home to keep things running, to keep things clean. I was saving my energy for just the very basic things I needed to do. Cooking for myself became a little more difficult because I was not hungry, and I knew I needed to eat because I needed to keep myself healthy, but I wasn't very interested in food. I spent a lot of time on the couch. My kids were still in school, so when they come home, I'd try to be on the couch so I could at least ask them, how was your day? How did school go? As I was reaching kidney failure, I wasn't depressed, but it was kind of the sense of resignation or acceptance. It was hard for me to express how I really felt, to really truly kind of open up to somebody about how down you were feeling, how afraid, how scared you were. And especially since some of these thoughts may have been a little bit darker, and it's just hard to find somebody who you can really just let all these emotions out. In the list of symptoms, it mentions trouble hearing. I didn't experience that, but I did have my heart pounding in my ears and in my head, and it was just like that. And it wasn't annoying. It didn't really affect my day-to-day, but it was just, it just caused anxiety because you're like, this shouldn't be happening. In the list, it didn't mention kidneys aching, but mine did. Mine ached right back here. It would just like a growing pain. It would just sit there and ache and ache. Also on the list of symptoms, it mentions having a metallic taste in your mouth. I didn't experience that. Instead, I would get blood blisters. I have yet to figure out what caused it, because sometimes I would eat something and my whole mouth would it act almost like an allergic reaction, and I just get a whole bunch of blood blisters that would just swell up really quickly. and I couldn't figure out what food caused it because it would just happen randomly. I'd get them on, especially on my cheeks, but I'd also get them on my tongue. Another symptom that I felt that wasn't on the symptoms of chronic kidney disease was my white blood cell count dropped. That made it so I pretty much caught anything that was going around. Now, this transition from having some kidney function to no kidney function, from stage 4 kidney disease to end stage, is a difficult one. You feel very lonely and it's scary. It's a scary time. It's as you transition into having to do dialysis. Now, it takes some time to recover. It took at least 3 months for my body to kind of get used to dialysis. This is what we're doing. This is how we do it. And then from there, I started to feel like I had more energy. If you've planned ahead with what you want to do after you've reached kidney failure, that's going to help you kind of push through this transition. Now, this process of going through kidney failure to dialysis will take a toll on your body. It will age you, it will change you, and you'll have to get used to this new situation, this new way of life. But what makes you will still be there. And that's what makes this fight worth fighting for. I want you to understand this. You are worth the fight. And just like me, I know that you'll be able to find fulfillment and joy in life despite the fact that you have to do dialysis.